Welcome to the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco Podcast. I'm Laura DiFrancesco, your host. We're talking all about mergers and acquisitions, buying and selling small businesses, as well as corporate law. We are taking our experience closing over $10 billion of transactions since founding Dean Street Law 5 years ago, and my experience being an M&A and corporate attorney for over a decade and making it accessible to you as an entrepreneur. I hope that this helps you in navigating the complex world of mergers and acquisitions. And also, we're always happy to be a resource for you here at Dean Street Law. You can always apply to work with us through our complimentary consultations linked in our show notes. And a huge shout out and thank you to everyone who's subscribed and left us a 5-star review. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe and also leave us a 5-star review. It's one of the best ways to support us as a small business. And also be sure to share with your friends and colleagues on social media, through text, email, or however is easiest. It means the world to us that you're supporting our content and helps us make more to support you in your journey. Welcome back to another episode of Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco. Today we are talking all about what is entrepreneurship through acquisition. We're actually doing a whole series on entrepreneurship through acquisition to garner in my new book, Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition, A Legal Guide to Buying a Small Business. So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe. We have a whole series of episodes all focused on entrepreneurship through acquisition. And overall, this podcast is a fantastic resource for entrepreneurship through acquisition. I hope you'll consider checking out my book. You can download the first chapter through the link in our show notes, and you can get on the wait list so that you can pre-order, leave us a 5-star review and everything. We have some exciting goodies that we're sending out to everybody who leaves us a 5-star review. We are going to be sending out our pre-letter of intent due diligence request list. So I encourage you to check out our book. And of course, we have a lot of different resources on entrepreneurship through acquisition, this podcast, our blog, as well as Acquisition Insights, a legal course with 80 plus lessons on video and written materials, as well as all of my battle-tested templates on entrepreneurship through acquisition. So with that said, let's talk about what is entrepreneurship through acquisition. Entrepreneurship through acquisition is a fancy word for an age-old practice of buying and selling businesses. Essentially, what's happened is that someone took an idea that was already existing, branded it with a fancy new name, and marketed it specifically through the MBA programs at some of the top colleges and universities in the country and across the world. So entrepreneurship acquisition is purely a subset of mergers and acquisitions that have been happening since the beginning of time. Since commerce existed, people were buying and selling ideas, buying and selling businesses. So it's not a new theory or idea, but there has been so much that's been built around it in terms of the idea of what type of business most people in entrepreneurship through acquisition are looking for, and different types of models on how to do it in terms of financials and whether you're fundraising or not fundraising and how you want to exit and grow. So even though it's not new, there are a lot more resources around it now, which I think is a fantastic thing. And in addition to that, there are also so many different nuances to entrepreneurship through acquisition types of transactions that are very different from private equity. So while it is a part of mergers and acquisitions, it is definitely a niche subset of mergers and acquisitions with its own unique market terms and specifics that you'll specifically see. When you're thinking about a private equity deal, you're thinking of typically a deal in lower middle market, something generally above 5 million or around 3+ million, whereas entrepreneurship through acquisition can be starting at 50,000, going all the way up to multi-millions. But overall, for the most part, businesses that are having a long-standing historical financial performance, they're more safe and have a more predictable future. And it's getting people into entrepreneurship in an avenue other than just starting a business. We're actually going to have our next episode talking all about the differences between entrepreneurship through acquisition versus starting a business. And if you're not familiar with my world and me specifically, I have a very unique take on this. I've been a mergers and acquisitions attorney for over a decade. I worked in big law for a long time before starting my own firm, Dean Street Law. In addition to that, I have my own enterprises and my own portfolio of companies. So I have 5 businesses of my own. So I talk and think and experience entrepreneurship through acquisition, both from a legal as well as entrepreneurial mindset. So it's a very different perspective. And I'm also excited to share more about entrepreneurship through acquisition with you and what it is, because there's so much hype around it. And I led with the fact that it is a marketing term to coin something that's already existed. And that's exactly what's happening. There's so much marketing around it, from MBA programs to entrepreneur influencers. And although there are a lot of great books on it and great resources, I find that so often it's this hype train, FOMO, bro type of culture where it's trying to get you to click now and buy now and sign up now and join the crew. Like, it almost feels like semi-cult following. And that's just not my vibe. And I think that there's honestly a lot of that really does a disservice to people who are interested in entrepreneurship through acquisition, because both as an attorney and entrepreneur, I feel that when you are able to better understand the risks of something and the implications of something, you're able to make better informed decisions and then create an environment for success for yourself based on that information. So all of this hype culture around entrepreneurship through acquisition tends to never really talk about the implications of it, the challenges of it, the nuances of it. It's more get on the train or you're missing the boat. And then to the extent that you do hear it, it's these war stories that can get so warped that someone thinks that one instance is what will happen every time. Or, people tend to learn from something negative 5 times more than they learn from something positive. And that's just the way that we're wired for survival. And so you hear these war stories that just get blown out of proportion that I think sometimes people just want to tell to massage their own egos and make themselves feel better for something bad that happened. But as someone who's done hundreds of transactions, I can tell you the negatives are there, and it's important to talk about it. We're going to talk about them. But there's also the vast majority of deals that get done are done in a positive manner and have a positive result. So go into it with your eyes open, with the knowledge of what can happen and the risks, but don't let the war stories dissuade you, because one, it's just not an accurate depiction of reality. It's like the news cycle, how it's always sharing bad news. And then in addition to that, there's so much that you can do from a legal perspective and a business perspective to protect yourself and position you well for success. So with that, entrepreneurship through acquisition merely means buying a business as a path to entrepreneurship as opposed to starting one. So simple, so easy. There's a lot of hype around it right now. I think it was even featured in either the Wall Street Journal or New York Times as the headline of the day, which was amazing. I think there's a lot that people can benefit from learning about entrepreneurship through acquisition. Part of the reason why I want to share my book is to give this opportunity to others, to share with this opportunity with others, because I think it is a very beneficial opportunity, particularly for women and minorities, to be able to advance in both power and wealth and influence and community leadership in so many different avenues through entrepreneurship. So for me, it's something that's really near and dear to my heart that I'm excited to share with others, but don't just get swept up in the hype train. In terms of the difference between entrepreneurship through acquisition and entrepreneurship in general, in my opinion, there really is none. We're going to be talking about in our next episode, starting a business versus buying a business and the implications and differences there. But you're an entrepreneur, whether you buy your business or start your business, and there are no accolades lost for the fact that you bought a business versus starting one. It's simply, where do you want to start your journey? Do you want to start at ground zero? Do you want to start it a few years in where it's already somewhat established, somewhat tested? So it's really just preference risk tolerance, capital that you have to invest, capital that you desire to fundraise. It's really just deciding what makes sense for you, your life, your business, your goals. Ultimately, you're the person that makes the choice for yourself. So with that said, while there has been a lot of hype on the hype train about entrepreneurship through acquisition, what are the positives? So, of course, the advantages of buying a business is the prior history. Now, entrepreneurship through acquisition technically could be for your early stage venture capital type of investments, for sure. Most of the time, it's the time-tested businesses, the boring businesses, the businesses that have that runway most of the time. But there are a lot of branches of entrepreneurship through acquisition where people are getting more excited about different things. They're finding earlier stage companies, they're finding tech companies, consumer product companies, franchises, so many different avenues to entrepreneurship through acquisition. And some people are also looking at just lifestyle companies, companies that feel good for them, not just because it's a boring business, but a business that aligns with their lifestyle. In terms of the advantages, of course, it's starting at that later stage. There is less perceived risk, but that doesn't mean it's risk-free. Oftentimes, those financials, if you have a solid history of financials, will enable you to get different types of financing than you would be able to when you're starting a business. So overall, those are a few of the advantages of acquiring. You have your built-in audience, your built-in consumer base, your built-in vendors, your built-in employees, all of those types of things you can then work to improve instead of starting from scratch. What kind of risk does ETA reduce? Overall, it's reducing your startup risk of trying an idea and it not working. Most of the time in entrepreneurship through acquisition, there is an idea that's already been working. Perhaps it can be improved, made more efficient. Sometimes entrepreneurship through acquisition is a turnaround situation, not often, but sometimes it is. And so the risks are deal dependent, I would say, deal dependent, industry dependent. Overall, how you structure the deal, the structure can drastically reduce or increase your risks. So risks through entrepreneurship through acquisition aren't necessarily eliminated, but through deal making, there is a way to contract around certain risks, whereas you're accepting most risks when you start a business yourself. And then the financing, as I mentioned, SBA financing is a great opportunity for a lot of people pursuing entrepreneurship through acquisition, where there is sufficient financial strength and history in the business and sufficient assets. Overall, SBA loan tends to have more favorable terms than conventional loan, but at the same time, there are, especially on the bigger side of entrepreneurship through acquisition, a lot of different opportunities for financing, whether that be through asset-based lending, conventional loans, your SBA loans, or fundraising. So there are a lot of different options for financing, which tends to be a lot harder in starting a business. When it comes to navigating corporate law, entrepreneurship, and managing small businesses, experience matters. Dean Street Law is a boutique corporate firm specializing in mergers and acquisitions and additional focus in real estate, commercial transactions, finance, and corporate governance. With over $10 billion in deals closed, Dean Street Law has extensive experience representing hundreds of clients in thousands of transactions, from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies. Whether you need startup guidance or advice on closing multi-million or multi-billion dollar deals, we're your trusted partner every step of the way. Visit deanstreetlaw.com in the show notes to schedule a complimentary consultation. Now, a lot of people don't talk about the risks of entrepreneurship through acquisition and who it's not for. And so I think that's a really important conversation as well. Entrepreneurship through acquisition is still a tremendous risk, especially if you have an SBA loan where you have a personal guarantee. And I always like to focus in entrepreneurship through making mistakes in the least expensive way I can. And then when I have more certainty around success, investing more fully in something. I will say, if this is your first time at entrepreneurship and you haven't been an entrepreneur before, First off, whether you're suited for entrepreneurship entirely depends on your personality and drive and so many personal factors to you. And just because it's a good investment opportunity doesn't mean that it's for everybody. It is far and away different from real estate. It's touted all the time as a better opportunity than investing in real estate. But real estate, you can get an agent to lease a property for you. You can put your money in. Most of the time, you have fairly less risk because real estate generally appreciates in value. Entrepreneurship through acquisition is incredibly different. A mismanaged company will absolutely depreciate in value. If you're not prepared for entrepreneurship, if it doesn't suit your interests, if you're not committed to it, if you're not ready to be scrappy and fully invested and driven to succeed come hell or high water, entrepreneurship is just going to be a sink or swim place. And if you make a big bet and you have a big personal guarantee, and or you don't adequately protect yourself through the deal documents and deal structure, there is so much that can go wrong, and it's very different in a risk profile than a real estate acquisition. And overall, it's going to demand so much more from you. So you have to prepare for that. And sometimes people are looking to get into entrepreneurship through acquisition as a way to retire early or essentially have a lifestyle business that just pays for their life and they sit back and just collect money. And while a lot of sellers may market their business as an absentee owner or something to that nature, most sellers are doing a lot of work in their business and are an integral part of their business. And you can't just have a manager that manages it and sit back and collect money. It's not the same as real estate. So there's an inherent risk there that, of course, your asset that you're buying can depreciate in value tremendously quickly, and you're personally on the hook for it. So that's a risk that I don't feel like people talk about enough. One, are you even suited to entrepreneurship to begin with? And two, the fact that the asset is not necessarily an appreciating asset. It can be, but it can also not be. And then, of course, overall, the fact that if you're personally liable for it, there's a personal guarantee. That's a tremendous amount of risk as well. So I'm not dissuading you from pursuing entrepreneurship through acquisition, but I think it's important to make an informed decision so that you can create an environment for success for yourself. Ultimately, if you're comfortable in making that commitment, if you're comfortable with the risk that you have, you know that it could be a depreciating or appreciating asset, I think you approach it in a very different manner, especially when you're talking about engaging legal counsel and deal structure and making sure the deal makes sense. And then overall, you have to be doing a good amount of due diligence in your deal to be able to decide whether this is the one that you hang your hat on or not, because who you do business with and the business that you purchase will ultimately be a tremendous influence in your success overall in your pursuits of entrepreneurship through acquisition. Let's talk a little bit, since you have me, your corporate attorney specializing in mergers and acquisitions and specifically entrepreneurship through acquisitions. Let's talk about the legal considerations in entrepreneurship through acquisitions. We just spoke about due diligence. Due diligence is the process by which you research, learn more about the business that you're interested in buying, and overall go through the process of learning enough about it to structure a deal, decide if it's the business that you want to buy, both before your letter of intent and after your letter of intent. And then there's different types of due diligence as well: operational, which you'll do; financial, which you may do or hire an expert for; and then legal, which we will do. So due diligence is just one part. I have a whole guide on the various phases of an acquisition, and actually I think that might be our first episode as well. So if you want to learn more about overall the deal timeline, the different phases of the acquisition and everything, you can download that guide. You can also check out the first episode of the podcast so you can learn more about the phases of buying a business and the letter of intent, all of those different aspects. We also have a podcast on deal structure of asset purchases versus stock purchases. So there's generally 3 different ways to buy a business. You can either buy it as an asset purchase, where it is purchasing the assets of the business, you set up your own business, all of those have to be transferred. You could also purchase the equity. This is generally referred to as stock, but typically it could also be membership interests if it's an LLC, or partnership interests if it's a limited liability partnership or limited partnership. So there are different ways to characterize it, but most people just call it a stock purchase. And then there's actually a merger. You typically don't see mergers in entrepreneurship through acquisition because a merger would generally be between two existing companies, and you would have that be more of a strategic acquisition. So after your first acquisition, maybe that's something you might consider, but mergers you don't see too often. That's why we have that episode on asset purchases versus stock purchases, which is really good if you want to hear the pros and cons. But determining your deal structure will influence the overall risk profile that you have. So if you're thinking that this is a great way to pursue building a retirement and getting the financial freedom that you want, amazing, but make sure that your deal structure is sufficient enough to protect you. And the number one thing that you can invest in is good legal support in your transaction, including before you sign that LOI. I actually just spoke with a client today who got absolutely burned from not having legal counsel before signing the LOI in a prior deal. That deal had fallen through. And he was like, I would love to speak with you today because I want to submit an LOI, look at an LOI, and I really want legal counsel before it's signed. And that's really important. So we do have a flat fee package just to do letters of intent that's discounted to support our clients through that more uncertain phase where there's more reps going into it than just the one sometimes. And then the overall conversations in structuring your deal are going to be covering all kinds of things from purchase price to the structure of the purchase price, whether there's rollover equity or seller notes, how the transition period is structured with the seller, how they might be involved post-closing, if there's an asset purchase versus a stock purchase, whether you might have employees that you want to make sure that you get key employment agreements for, if there's a lease, what the lease terms are, if there's real estate involved, how that's handled. So there are a lot of different terms that you're going to encounter both in your letter of intent as well as in your overall deal structure that we work through with you in that entire process. Overall, negotiations are really a skill that is incredibly important for you to learn. Deal making is a skill. Negotiations are a skill. So if you're looking to learn more about deal making and negotiations, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. Of course, leave us a 5-star review. That would mean the world to us. And you can also leave a comment and let us know what you'd like to hear next. But we do have episodes about negotiation as well as overall structuring a deal and deal terms. So it's important to improve your deal making skills if this is something that you want to pursue, just like if you wanted to pursue ice skating or going to the Olympics for some kind of sport. You would be training for that, learning, investing your time, energy, resources to pursue that goal. That's the same thing that you need to do if you want to pursue entrepreneurship through acquisition. And I also think it's a good test of whether it's the right thing for you before you start investing major dollars. Start spending time learning. You can learn through the podcast, through our resources, through Acquisition Insights, through my book. So start to spend time in this space. And if you spend time in this space and you feel that it's somewhere that you want to continue spending time and skills you want to continue developing, then you can feel more confident in making the decision to pursue entrepreneurship through acquisition and committing thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in purchasing a business. So I think it's a really good litmus test to figure out how committed you are and how good it feels. Of course, you have legal support that can help you along the way, but at the same time, know that entrepreneurship through acquisition is a highly legally involved process. And even if you have phenomenal legal support, becoming more educated on legal aspects of buying a business will put you so far ahead of others in their pursuit of entrepreneurship through acquisition and will help you to mitigate your risk and maximize your opportunity. Thinking about buying a business? Unlock the secrets of successful acquisitions with Acquisition Insights, your legal roadmap for success. With over 81 modules of video lectures, written materials, guides, and checklists, we provide in-depth guidance to navigate every step of the process. From initial interest to closing the deal, get the expertise you need to make informed decisions. You can also access our battle-tested templates in the Acquisition Insights course and templates bundle, including our template LOIs, letters of intent, pre- and post-LOI due diligence request list, material deal terms lists, and more. Visit lauradifrancesco.co/the-shop today and take the first step towards buying your dream business. All the links are in the show notes. There are a number of ETA models. So even though entrepreneurship through acquisition in and of itself is a niche, there are actually subsets within that niche of different strategies to pursue entrepreneurship through acquisition. I'm not going to go over them in great detail now because we actually have an upcoming episode all about the different types of ETA models. And then I'm actually going to do a whole episode per model to share about the pros, the cons, the legal implications, the tax implications, all those types of things, so that you can make an informed decision about which type of ETA model is right for you. I actually had this in my book and it ended up being like 50 some plus pages. And I was thinking, you know what? I want to be as comprehensive as I can be in sharing what I know, but at the same time, that's a lot of the book to dedicate just to the different types of ETA models. So what I'll do is I'll introduce the idea in the book, glance over it, and then people can go to the podcast for some more in-depth information on it. So we'll talk more about those ETA models in a next episode, but primarily the differences are going to be whether you are the acquirer solely yourself, you're the sole owner, or whether you will be bringing in other owners as well or other financing through either a search fund, raising a fund to enable you to have a job to full-time search, or if you're going to self-fund where you do it yourself and you pay for it the entire way. And then there's a quasi-self-funded where people self-fund for their search and then they fundraise for their actual acquisition. So it just depends on control desires for profit from the endeavors, and there's pros and cons to each. So we will talk about those in greater detail in our later episodes, as well as the pros and cons of each. So as you've learned a little bit more about entrepreneurship through acquisition, you may be asking whether entrepreneurship through acquisition is the right path for you. I think this is a very introspective time to, one, start learning and investing without cost or at minimal cost to see if this is something right for you. Ultimately, you're the only person that can decide if this is right for you, how much you want to dedicate of your time, attention, resources, career, life to this pursuit. And starting by just learning is a great way to start. And it's a great way to get started, even if you're not ready to start. And you won't have a lot to lose because whether you're learning through our course Acquisition Insights, our book, our podcast, whatever medium, others, books, other podcasts, whatever medium you're learning through, that small investment is a drop in the bucket ultimately to the later investment that you'll be making of time, attention, resources, life, career. So not only is it well worth it to just test if this is the right thing for you, it's also well worth it because the skills that you will learn in entrepreneurship through acquisition are the same skills that will carry you to success, in my opinion, in anything you pursue. My background in law was actually something that I pursued to be a better entrepreneur. I wanted to learn the fabric of business. Law is the rules of the road. It's the rules of playing Monopoly. And if you want to win, you have to know the rules. So whether you're interested in becoming an entrepreneur or want to be better in business, honestly, if you want to learn a little bit more about yourself, entrepreneurship through acquisition is a good pursuit for all of those things. But of course, make sure that you have the right support around you, you have the right team around you. Legal is one of the most important things Financial is as well. We have great contacts in the space if you need references. Of course, if you'd like, you can schedule a consultation call through the link in the show notes. We would be happy to speak with you and show you how we can support you on your transaction. And then also, what are the types of skills and mindsets needed if you want to pursue entrepreneurship through acquisition? Negotiation is one of the biggest skills that need to be honed and worked through. It's so much more than just who's right. It's finding solutions that are a win-win-win. Win for you, win for them, win for the customers, employees, overall win for everybody, right? That's what you're looking for. It's not about winning and the other person losing. That's not deal making. That's not going to get you to the table. The bulldogs of law, the people who want to bulldoze one another, beat each other up, that's litigation. That's not deal making. You need friendly negotiations where you get your point across with respect to the other person, with your deal points relating to the facts specific to the deal and not attacks or digs at the other party. Negotiation is one of the most important factors of success and skills to build. Deal making is the second. It's just a skill, just like anything else. Understanding a deal, understanding deal structure, understanding terms, all of those, being able to think creatively through them, solutions, those are all important skills. And then entrepreneurship overall, anything that you can do to better your entrepreneurial skills is really important. Thinking creatively out of the box, building your courage, building your resilience. A lot of these things are things that you can learn in other areas of your life that will apply well here. Financial skills, marketing skills, operations skills. I'm constantly honing my skills in all of those different facets and more to constantly work to be the best entrepreneur that I can be. And I find that pursuit also helps me be the best person I can be, ironically, as well. So if you're thinking whether entrepreneurship through acquisition is for you or not, I encourage you to spend more time in this space, get to know others. There's great communities. Search Funder is one of my favorite. LinkedIn is another. Twitter, I think, is great if you find the right community. That hype culture, bro culture, all of that tends to be prolific on Twitter. But there is an SMB community on Twitter as well. You can follow me there if you would like. We also have ability to connect on all of the different platforms. You can connect on Search Funder, you can connect on LinkedIn, but those are some great ways to find community. And if you need mentorship, we do include that as an add-on to Acquisition Insights, as well as, of course, our legal services. So you have plenty of support here. I think if it's something that you're thinking about, take some time for introspection, figure out where you want to go with your life, how you want to get there, and if this feels aligned, and then start experimenting. That's the best way to develop your skills in entrepreneurship is take action, reflect, repeat. Take action, reflect, repeat. Make informed decisions and constantly get better over time. I hope that this episode has been helpful. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Be sure to download and order my book, Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition, a legal guide to buying a small business. I'm really excited to share more about it with you. And if there's anything that we've shared today that could help others, please be sure to share on social media, tag us at Laura DiFrancesco at Dean Street Law, and let us know what you'd like to hear about next. Cheers and happy deal making. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco podcast. I hope you found today's discussion insightful and that it brought you one step closer to mastering the art of mergers and acquisitions. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in our discussion, please leave a 5-star review. It would mean the world to us. And share this podcast with your network, friends, and colleagues. For more in-depth resources, be sure to visit our website, deanstreetlaw.com, where you can find articles, guides, and more information on our services. Don't forget to follow us on social media for the latest episodes, updates, tips, and exclusive content. You can find us on LinkedIn, Search Funder, at LMDFrancesco on X, and at Dean Street Law on Instagram. Join us on our next episode where we'll explore more deal-making insights. Cheers and happy deal making.